But basically, I just wanted to share your story, a little bit of your story, and at the same time, kind of a little bit of how I guess we started to cultivate a relationship,
Yeah.
and then what's coming up with you, both sides of the track, either
Oh, yeah.
Cadence, but on the other security side, because that's what we're here for. And I would love to get your thoughts on how you felt about the presentation, because I got to see you live for the first time.
Yeah.
So I guess let's start off with, who are you?
I'm Kathy Zant.
Cadence.
It's just Kathy Zant, all one word, right?
Kathy
Like
Zant.
if Madonna and this year it's Madonna, you don't know her last name. I'm
No.
Kathy Zant. My two names together, if you just say Zant or Kathy, it's
just
Kathy Zant.
Kathy Zant. Kind of like Michael Jordan. Like you never say Michael without the Jordan. You see?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So Kathy Zant, where are we right now and what are you here for?
Yeah. We are in New Orleans,
New
Orleans. Like, if Northerners, like, what do we call it? I'm just trying to be like Nolans, like I'm here.
You know, Nolans.
Nolans?
They call it NOLA. The NOLA.
NOLA, yes. New Orleans is what I would call it in Chicago, New Orleans. Or my old Chicago accent, I guess. I also say things like Wisconsin, and then people are like, where are you from? Wisconsin.
So we are in New Orleans, and what are you here for?
We are here for WPCampus, which is kind of like a word camp for higher ed. So WPCampus is a great event. Actually, WPCampus was my very first WordPress event that I ever went to. It was held in St. Louis, and I went there with somebody I was working with. I wasn't speaking. I was just like doing a booth and learning the whole. It was my very first one that I ever went to.
Full circle.
Yeah, so it's kind of full circle. I wasn't a speaker, but I got to meet a lot of people at that particular event. So WPCampus and higher ed. I mean, I love coming to colleges. There's just like this vibe about colleges. I've already been to the Tulane bookstore and got my Tulane shirt. Like, probably like college swag. When I was in college, I was on the speech team. So we would go to like various colleges and compete in speech. We'd always go to the bookstores if they were open, because we were always on weekends, and go buy swag from the colleges or bumper stickers. I had this old car, and like the back of it was all bumper stickers of different colleges I had gone to. So it was a lot of fun. So I'm kind of like, I don't know, I like higher ed, and then I like what WordPress does for higher ed. The fact that we have these young minds who are very ambitious and idealistic about making big changes in the world. And we have these teachers who are very committed and passionate about education and teaching people to find that voice and to get it out into the world.
Yes.
So it's kind of this perfect melding of everything that I love about the internet, of giving people voices, of having sort of this marketplace of ideas where people can talk about lots of different things, and the young voices and bringing them and their inquisitive minds and that their thoughts about how our culture and society and our world can be better, and bringing it all together. So I just love the mission. And you were there yesterday at opening remarks where they talked about, was it Living School?
Yes, Living School was there. Yeah.
I was so inspired by that story.
I was too.
Amazing. Like when they were talking about like, okay, who is homeschooled in the audience? I had my daughter with me, and I'm like, stand up.
I thought of you when he started. I'm looking over, like, I'm about to see Kathy. I remember that.
Because that's how I got started, like in the WordPress community, is because I was homeschooling my daughter up in Northern California and kind of bored and working on a few WordPress sites here and there, but I was a little bit out of the tech space and kind of helping my husband with his business. And a company put out the call for people who could clean hack sites. I'm like, oh, I've done that a few times. So I'd love to do that. But so I was just doing it part-time, only wanted part-time, but I got so excited about everything that was happening with security and malware. I would sit there and analyze malware. And then I'd have my daughter sit with me. I'm like, you want to play a game? It's called Malware, Not Malware. Let's see if you can play this game. And she was like 8 years old. And she was pretty good because it's just like comparing PHP that you and I would normally see versus obfuscated PHP. So she's like very easily could identify the patterns, right? But it was just kind of a fun game of
That's interesting.
Yes.
I mean, that's not the normal or like the traditional kind of like formal educational pathway.
Yeah.
And that's something I feel like we need a lot more in society than we have. And I don't want to touch on it too much, but I definitely want to put a pin in this because I think it's important from the educational standpoint. Homeschooling is not easy. One,
Yeah.
bring up living school. I like how they say you started with 38 and they're about 200 right now.
Yeah.
That's not easy, and it means that a lot of these kids really want to be involved. They want to
Yes.
change their lives in a different way. So for
Yeah.
you, I would say, or I would ask, when it comes to homeschooling, do you feel that there's an advantage or a disadvantage as far as either from the educational aspect of what a child can learn and or from a socialization aspect from what
Yeah.
a child would be engaging with without the
Yeah.
typical school route?
Right. Well, we were in a very unique situation where my daughter in starting kindergarten already knew how to read, already knew like some basic math, and then gets thrown into kindergarten where we're not ready for her here to be able to read. So they started putting her with the second graders, and kindergarten and second grade are very different social environments.
Mhm.
And so she just did not vibe with the second graders where they were emotionally and intellectually, but she could do all of the mechanics of studying with them. So she was in a charter school that was hybrid, so half homeschool, half in
Gotcha.
school.
Gotcha.
So she would go and do some classes at school, and then I was doing more of the more academic stuff with her at home.
Mhm.
So it was kind of a hybrid situation for
Okay.
the first couple of years. But then, like, going on field trips, like with the kindergartners, who's this other kid? So it was this weird situation. And we did rely on that charter school. They did have homeschooling capabilities, so they
Okay.
supported us through that. So they gave us curriculum and things like that. So for a long while, she was just, when I was really getting bored with third grade math, and I was just like, give me a hack site to clean. Give me something that was intellectually stimulating to math because the homeschooling aspect of it was kind of boring. And then by that point, she had gotten to the point where she was kind of ready to go back to school. And then we realized we also then had to move to the school just couldn't handle where she was. So she was in a much more rigorous, and then she went back to regular school. And so she's kind of had the best of both worlds
seems like that.
yeah.
Yeah.
So at the times of her life where she's needed to have more instruction in a classroom and social activities and stuff, she's had that. And when she's needed more time home and more focused, individualized attention, she's had that too. So
That's important.
yeah,
That's very important.
something I wish I had when I was a kid, because I was like the weirdo that was reading like when I was still in diapers. Like I was the trick. My parents would bring out like, what? She knows how to read. When I'd have to like read for all the party goers, right? Like,
Spectacle.
but they didn't. But when I was a kid, they did not have those kinds of opportunities available. So I was just thrown in and ended up being kind of like, now you want my story? The early days, I was like, the teacher's going down to the smoking lounge, watch all the kids. And I'm just like, these are my peers. What do you mean watch all the kids? But it was because I was picking up the lessons faster, and I was like the smart kid, and I was in the gifted programs.
Sure.
Yeah, and all of that. And so I was just kind of like a weirdo growing up.
And I think that those make the best of us. And to your point, when it comes to how you were able to rear your daughter in these hybrid scenarios for education.
Yeah.
And I use that word rear intentionally because I remember when I was in high school, my music teacher would always say, you don't raise children, you rear children, you raise calf. And it always just stuck in my head. But as far as, because I think somebody's watching this is going to be a parent, and they are maybe it's not a traditional or normal scenario, but choosing whether or not they want to do homeschooling or whatever, because schools got different than you growing up or I growing up with these kids, right?
Yeah.
So now it's not just from an educational standpoint, but it's views and values that wasn't there present when. So you giving this context on, okay, I didn't deprive my child of some of those social or other curricular based nuances and plus I needed to stimulate myself and not drive myself crazy as a mom.
And she's watching it too. She's watching what I'm doing, that I'm not going to just like sit there and do nothing, that I need my intellectual stimulation too. So you get yours, right? But our world has changed a lot. And I think not even just the schools, but our work. Like, look at you and some of the conversations we've had just here about making sure that your work fulfills you, right? I think school needs to fulfill the child, like not the child needs to fulfill the test results. And I think there's still a lot of that happening in schooling right now, where it's like teach to the test, make sure that we get our metrics up and all of this kind of stuff. And but I think it's the parent's responsibility to watch to make sure that you know who your kid is, you know what passion that they have for living, where they're going to play the most in their life, and help them kind of find a place where they can play and work at the same time, because that's what our world is turning into. We're turning, and the internet has done that a lot for us, and this creator economy, like this content that we're putting out right here, right now, this conversation is very much us being put out into the world. And each one of us has that value. Everybody that's watching this, everybody that's listening to this has a value in the world. And I just read something this morning that gave me chills. You are the niche. So many people who are going into like, what am I going to do for the rest of my life? What am I going to do for my Twitter account or my social media or my YouTube channel or whatever? And you have to fit into a niche. You have to niche down before you can do all of this stuff. So people like torture themselves into thinking, what box do I need to fit in? It's like going back to school and like, what test do I need to click all the boxes for? No, think of it differently. Think about you as the niche, and think about you and the value that you want to bring to the world, the passion, the purpose that you have that is going to help the person that you used to be, because there's somebody in the footsteps right behind you. There's somebody who's like, I want to be what Maestro's doing. Like some of the kids that you mentor and you teach about WordPress and you teach about Cadence and things like that. All of that stuff that you're doing, you are your niche. It's the Maestro Steven show. And you're teaching people how to get where you are as you go aspirationally towards something else. And that, I think, is a beautiful thing. And it's one of the things I love about WordPress and Cadence, of course, is that empowers people to do all of that, to find what their value in the world is, and to expand on that, and to not try to like box themselves into someone else's expectations.
That's deep. I usually would drop the mic there, but we'll have a little bit more conversation about. So speaking of not boxing in, tell us a little bit about what you came here for and what your topic was about.
Yeah. So my topic, for events that I want to go to, I'll pitch a few topics, right? And so I've had a lot of experience, even before I was cleaning WordPress sites. I had a lot of experience in the security world. In the late 1990s, a server I inherited got hacked, and they sent me off to security school, and I learned how to spoof emails and basically the underpinnings of the internet and what that was all about. So security is and hacker culture is a big part of who I am. And what is interesting and exciting to me, my WordCamp US talk a couple of years ago was the hacker mindset, because I think like playing, that's what hackers are. They're just like testing the boundaries and testing to see what will work and maybe what won't work. And Steve Jobs and Steve Wozniak, when they created the Apple computer, the first personal computer, they were hackers before that. They were phone freaking to get free long distance. There's all kinds of, a lot of what we know as our technology came from hacker culture. And so I love that kind of innovation. But I also love, maybe that's why I love Cadence, because Cadence is kind of like that too. I mean, Ben Rittner, the founder of Cadence, he created Cadence before Gutenberg was a part of Core. He wasn't like, oh, I need to create this thing because this. No, he's like, oh, I see opportunity here. I see where this is going, and I see something else. And so he was very much a hacker in that mindset, because he thought outside of the box. The box didn't even have Gutenberg in it, but he could see where it was going and played with that, and he still does. And I think that's maybe one of the reasons why I have such an affinity for the Cadence project, is because it kind of has that childlike exuberance and playfulness and what else can we do? And everything that comes into Cadence is something that Ben sees a need. Ben sees like, hey, I can do this. Hey, we can expand into this. And what if we try this? Even with the design library, we changed that just a few months ago from being like images, and it was just kind of like not working right. It was like the images weren't coming into the design library. Well, they weren't images. They were actually like little web pages coming in, and you could colorize them based on the colors of your brand or your theme. And it wasn't coming in just right. It was taking quite some time. So I was doing like little videos. Hey, Ben, this is what I'm seeing. Maybe we can speed this up just a little bit. And other people were like saying, hey, maybe it could be faster. He hacked it. He hacked that. So he's a hacker. He hacked that. And now you don't see latency anymore. And gosh, what did he call it? There's something with the DOM that he's done so that he got the best of both worlds. But it took the hacker mindset. It took creativity in order to get there. And guess what? Ben homeschooled.
Oh, see. See
how we tie that all in?
Tie it together. I mean, in that, because we were talking the other day, and it was yesterday as well, too, about a lot of people who are successful don't come from a traditional background.
Yeah.
There are many stories and cases where people who were C students in high school became very successful and multimillionaires. And I'm talking about self-made success. So Ben is a testament to that, and tying it back full circle. And that's dope. And then as far as the security aspect of things, can you dive a little deeper on that? Like, what made you submit your talk for WPCampus?
Yeah. So last year, even before I started really working on when I started working at Stellar is owned by Liquid Web, big hosting company, but it's a collection of software brands.
Can you break that down? Because most people have no idea what this branch, this chain, or
okay. So Liquid Web bought a bunch of software companies, iThemes being the first. Was a collection of themes and also a lot of software products, a lot of plugins and whatnot. But the most successful one and the one that's most known for is iThemes Security. Timothy Jacobs is the lead dev on that. Another probably hacker mindset, understands security really well. Lead developer for that product. And he brought forth a proposal to the iThemes team to have, first, I came to Stellar and to iThemes and Cadence primarily to work on Cadence. I had left a security company before. I felt like I was kind of done with security, even though it was interesting to me and I still wanted to continue talking about it, but I wanted something more. And so someone asked me to take a look at Cadence and I was like, yes, I want to do this. This is amazing. The fact that it opens up power to so many people to publish, I want to do this. I could have probably worked on other brands at Stellar because there were some other marketing needs, events calendar, LearnDash, what other things? Give, Strict Content Pro. There's a bunch of different software brands in Stellar. Iconic, Orderable, which is for like restaurant ordering and things like that, local delivery types things, tons of different software brands. I'm like, surely there's things that I can contribute to, but I really wanted to focus on Cadence. And then my little pitch was, and I'll give a security talk here or there. I'll share my security knowledge and I'm happy to help in the security arena as well, but I'd really love to focus on Cadence. So it's kind of like the best of both worlds. I came to this place where I got to really play with Cadence, but also contribute to security. Well, Timothy brought the idea of bringing Passkeys and WebAuthn into iThemes Security. And I was in one meeting, they asked me to come to a meeting to talk about it. And I'm like, well, what is all this? Like trying to figure out what it is because I hadn't heard of it. And then I started playing with it. I'm like, oh, I know exactly what this is. This is like public key cryptography. We use this all over the place, but now here it's being applied so that my mom can figure it out. This is brilliant. This is amazing. So that is now part of the iThemes Security Pro product. And I was teasing Timothy saying, I think I'm going to change my middle name to Passkeys and just become a passkey advocate. And he started laughing. I'll be that too. He gives security talks about Passkeys as well. It's a really innovative technology. Google, Apple, Microsoft, who else is pushing it? PayPal. If you have a Stripe account, you can use a passkey as a second factor of authentication. You're still logging in with your password, but your 2FA is a passkey, which is, you're starting to see it more and more. You can secure your Google account now with a passkey. So, and basically how it works is public-private key cryptography. So if you've ever sent a PGP email message, or if somebody ever said, here's my public key, you can send an encrypted message to me. The public key is something that anybody can have. It's a bunch of random characters. And if you use an application, there's like plugins you can put into like Gmail, to encrypt a message with a public key, someone else's public key, and send that message. And they are the only person with their private key that can decrypt that message. So this type of authentication is now being applied to websites. So you have your key pair, so the public and private key are generated on your device in your browser, and you send the public key to the website you're logging into. You hold that private key that's being held for you basically in your browser. And if that website ever gets hacked, that public key is useless without the private key. The probability of somebody getting into your system and getting that private key out of your keychains, very, very low. It stops people from getting phished because there's no password to hand over. You can't really hand over the private key. Probably somehow a hacker's going to figure out how to get these types of things. But at this point, it's kind of useless. So phishing, that can't happen. Brute force attacks can't happen. So systems that are starting to use passkeys, or the greater standard is called web authoring, to secure their systems, are really solving a lot of the problems of passwords ending up in breaches, reused passwords. So many hacked sites that I've cleaned because of reused passwords. And this is going to start, we're going to start seeing passkeys being implemented more and more with larger. It's going to start from the top, right? It's going to start with, you'd think it would start with the banking system, but there's even multi-factor authentication. A lot of banking systems don't have that. But these are the types of things over, I'd say, the next 5 to 10 years, we're really going to see passkeys as the way to log into systems rather than using passwords. Until then, use a good password manager. But yeah.
And to your point here, credit, I ended up switching mine because of the video that you posted and details that you relayed back with the last pass. So, but this passkeys part, that's a new adventure for average people like myself that don't have as much understanding or knowledge about security. And I think security, ironically, was my first security plugin. So that came full circle when with Cadence and I think security brother and sister now. So it was interesting that I learned a lot from the plugin itself and how to set it up. That taught me reverse engineering, some security best practices when it came to WordPress. But then fast forward now, because I'm smacking myself in the hand because I use the same password multiple times. So like I was one of the people when you said in your talk that's bad and you shouldn't do it, and you kind of set up hands raised on people who are doing it. Like I was one of those ones that's shame. But to the whole point, you bringing topics like this up and people like you are now creating the opportunity for people like me who don't know better or don't know all the nuances. I need to start at least thinking in that direction and then keep watching videos and YouTube influencers and YouTube content creators like yourself who are educating people like me and others about this information because it's coming. 5 to 10 years is pretty short.
Yeah. Well, it's going to start happening because I talk about it, but you start using it. And then all of the people that you influence, all of the people who look to you for guidance when it comes to how to live a better online life, you're going to start talking about passkeys. Oh, well, let's do it this way. It'll keep you safer. And it's so much easier instead of like trying to remember a password or open your password manager or whatever. Just use the biometrics that are showing up on our devices, our laptops, and on our phones, and use those types of biometrics as a way to log in. Instead, it's easier for people, it's faster, and it's going to be more secure. But it's going to come, the wider adoption is going to come from influencers like you who are early adopters.
I think it's very helpful. Like your videos, because I imagine others need to be able to see it and watch it. Like I'm looking forward to you dropping the next video or whenever that you are going to release content on this and showcase it.
Yeah.
Because that's what's going to give me more of confidence to say, okay, I know it sounds easy to a person like you. It's like when I talk to developers here and in other places, they're talking alien language to me, even though I'm at a WordPress conference, but they're still talking a different language that's just not my specialty or my niche, as you say. It's not me. But people like yourself, like I look forward to seeing content like that. So that way I can watch it, I can feel more confident and comfortable.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, more videos coming, more.
No pressure.
Well, it's cool because I mean, as a hacker, I like to experiment with. Well, I'm kind of a unique person in that my background isn't necessarily computers and hacking. My background, I went to college. I was on the speech team. I went around to colleges and gave speeches, and then I was like, okay, now what? Who wants to hear a young kid and what I think about whatever, right? And I'm like, this internet thing's kind of this internet thing when. Because I got out of college and the internet was like, it wasn't really a thing yet. The .com bubble hadn't happened. And in college, I was just like, computer geeks. I wasn't like really into it. I didn't until I saw what it could do for like communication and connecting with people around the world. I mean, I remember like right out of college was like the AOL DVDs or CDs were like everywhere, right? And then like, okay, this is really cool. And just talking to people all over the place. And then I'm like, okay, and this internet thing is huge. And that's where I started teaching myself to code and did it because I had to, because I was like, I actually told one of my bosses, I'm like, I want to get in on this internet thing. And he's like, well, you can manage the internet guy because I don't want to talk to him. I'm like, okay, I'll manage him. And he was kind of frustrating. So I was like, all right, this HTML stuff, I'm going to teach myself HTML. And I'm like, that's all it is? I can do that. And then it was CSS. That's easy. JavaScript. Ooh, this is fun. Like being able to like learn new things all the time. I'm like, all right, sign me up for this. Sign me up for databases. Sign me up for Unix because Linux wasn't even a thing. Like, I'm going to figure this out. Yes. And I just wanted to figure it all out. And luckily I got to grow up with the internet. So now I didn't have to learn it all at once. Like it's hard now, like learning the underpinnings of CSS, JavaScript, HTML, the OSI model, and how security works. There's a lot to learn. I've been lucky that I didn't have to do it all at once. But yeah, so I got here.
I'm curious, as far as, 'cause I'm a big proponent of family, and I think that in our industry, we don't talk enough about how we're business people and professionals, but we're also family members, either wives, husbands, daughters, sons, cousins, uncles, this and that. And I think that it's important for people who are looking to build their own business or looking to climb up in the ladder to understand that I don't want to use the word balance, but there's a way to balance both. So you as a woman in this industry, because you've had to climb into the ranks yourself, you're also a wife, you're also a mother. I think that it's very important for people who do want to have family one day to hear from people like yourself.
Yeah.
My situation is a little bit more complicated, so I'm not going to go into all mine. But you are a model, is what I'm trying to say to a lot of people out there. So what advice would you give a young woman coming up, or even a young man, and they want to be married and they want to have kids, but at the same time, they do want to, I don't want to say like have their cake and eat it too with a career and everything, but for lack of a better term, how would they balance that? How would they do that?
Yeah. Yeah. And I think.
And is it possible? I'm sorry.
Yeah. I think it is possible. And I think I would not have had kids if I couldn't have been home with them. I haven't worked in an office since the 90s. I had my son in 20. Oh God, I'm so old. 2001 is when my son was born. And it was 6 months before 9/11. And I had started my own business I was developing websites for others. I had worked myself into a place where I was working on a major airlines website. And it was really stressful because when bad things happen in the airline industry, people fall out of the sky. But just because the mileage points aren't online doesn't mean people are falling out of the sky, but they act like it is, which for today and how where we are having your systems up all the time. Yes, uptime availability is incredibly important. And that time, it wasn't as critical, but they acted as if it was. It was very stressful. Somebody in Japan is complaining they can't get to the site. And I'm just like, it's 4 a.m. I can't fix that. Where are my ops people, right? It was really stressful and I just didn't want as much stress. So I knew that the internet was getting huge and smaller businesses needed guidance. And so I didn't want to work in big business. I wanted to work more with smaller and that's one of the things I love about Cadence Community is there's tons of smaller businesses, people just getting started with the internet and just getting started with building their own site. And I love that. So I started my own business, and that's when I had my son. And so I was able to balance it. It was extraordinarily hard. And when I had my daughter, it was a little bit easier because I had more tools and more help. But I mean, there were times where it's just like baby here, working here, and you just have to make it happen. There's, as a parent, especially as a young parent, it's really hard. It's really hard. I remember being and seeing somebody who had twins, and I have my son on my hip, and I'm just like, how do you do it with two? I think you just do it.
Right.
You just do it. And that's kind of been my mantra. And now, like with my husband, it kind of feels like I have another kid, and people are like, how do you do it? How do you do it? And for those, my husband had a stroke, and so he requires care, and a lot of care. And it's like having another child in some ways. You just do it. You do what's right because family is important. And at the end of my life, I want to look back and be proud of the decisions that I made, be proud of how I put my family first, and be proud of the sacrifices I made to make all of them, from my kids, my husband, even the ex-husband, made their lives better with the decisions that I made, even if maybe at the time it didn't feel that way. Maybe it felt like ridiculous and hard, but I'm making the best decisions I can, and I have no regrets. So if it's scary and hard, yes, and it doesn't last forever. So look at that little one. If you're right now with your child, and just be as present as you can, because when you're with them and you're worrying about work, that's normal. And when you're at work and you're worrying about them, that's normal. It's how it is. And you just have to be present with what is in front of you right here, right now, because it's there to expand you. It's there to show you what you're capable of. It's there to show you what you can be so that you can be more for them, so that you can be more for the world. It's not just about you. It's about your place in the fabric of all of this, how we all just kind of touch each other and inspire each other, and you have something to give. And the more you can balance all of that, taking care of yourself, because without having a full cup, you've got nothing to give anyone else.
Yeah.
So you got to put yourself in there too. Take care of yourself and take care of others and uplift everyone and expand all that is possible. It's all possible.
It's possible. I think one of the key takeaways, you said the word sacrifice based on everything that you gave. A lot of us use the term return on investment in the business world. And oftentimes people sacrifice for a return. They're expecting to get something for something that they gave, when not all the time, if you're not going to get the return that you want or that you feel like you deserve, but the sacrifice still, as you said, added value to that person.
Right.
Or to the people.
Right.
And I think that's big.
Yeah. There's no return on investment on some things that I can give you on paper, but I know in my heart and I know in my values, there's a return on investment in just knowing that I made the world a better place, that I gave a kid. I was talking to my son and I'm like, yeah, sorry, I was so crazy all the time and like worrying about everything. And he's like, no, I had the best upbringing. You did so much for me. And I loved how my teenage years were and how everything was. I don't remember any of the bad stuff that you're talking about. And I'm like, oh, good. I did something right. Because I used to joke with them all the time, like, if you're not in therapy by the time you're 30, then I did something wrong. Parenting is not a perfect thing. It's just kind of you show up with you and all of your broken pieces and all of the stuff that happened when you were a kid, and you're working on it too. And I think just being like super, like, don't try to be perfect. Just try to be you, and you're gonna screw up and say you're sorry, and it's okay. And I think saying that's something that a lot of people, I think, have issue. Well, maybe just my parents, but they don't,
I think it's a lot.
don't say they're sorry to their kids. Like, if you're wrong, say you're sorry. They're people too, and just like be on. You don't have to be perfect, and you don't have to like have like the ego needs. Like, Just be honest, and that's gonna go so much further. Like, I apologize to my kids all the time, maybe too much, I don't know, but just be you. You're in that position wherever you are right now. Yes. Just say yes to what's there that you can give to, which means saying no to a lot of things that want to take from you, right?
Yes, it's key to that's key to saying no. I mean, saying no is one thing, and but being in that position to be able to say no is another
Yeah.
thing. A lot of times we don't want to say no because we're not in the position. Hits people in poverty. Like you have to. For me, for example, this is the first time in my life where I have pretty much the options to do things that I've never been able to do
Yeah.
before. When, for instance, when you were talking about earlier about leaving people and the thing that I thought about was like being and making decisions. I was like, well, shoot, I had so many options on Bourbon Street, but last night we didn't know what restaurant, what bar to go to, and we literally got announced for hours. We're in the middle of the street, thinking
Yeah.
like, and everything around us is good.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
what do we do? So that's, as Biggie says, more money, more problems. But that's a big problem. That's a good problem. I'd rather have to have opportunity to say, no, I'm not going to take this client. No, I'm not going to go in that direction. Hey, if you guys want to go there, I'll
Yeah.
catch your Uber home.
Yeah. Yeah.
Everybody
There's
can't do that.
Derek Sivers, who started CD Baby. And
I
then,
know.
yeah. Yeah. And he talks about like, say no to anything that isn't an F yes. Like
Yeah.
if you don't feel it, like the passion of like, yes, I want to do this, or yes, I want to, like, this is the thing where your passion and your energy is all going towards it. If you don't feel that, just say no.
Yeah.
Yeah. That you only say yes to the things that get your, because I think a lot of times, and especially when you're younger and you don't know what it is that you want to do, a lot of times people are like, oh, well, I better do this or I should do this. And they should all over themselves, people say. And so they make decisions because of money or because of fear or because they feel like I have to, or that box that they were put into as a kid of this is what is expected of you, all of those things. But that they never get that feeling of, you know it, when you're excited, when you're having fun, when you're at a Taylor Swift concert and you're like, woo, this is it. When somebody gives you the permission to get into that flow state, yes, that's where you say your yes. And it's sometimes when mom and dad are like, oh, well, maybe you shouldn't be doing this and you need to go finish this and you need to get this job in finance or go be a doctor or a lawyer or whatever it is, wherever your passion is, whatever that singing in your soul is, that's your sign. When spirit likes to, I'm going to get woo-woo on you. Spirit likes to play with me with numbers all the time. So there's like numbers, 888s. I know that when I see 888s and I'm thinking about something, it's just like, they tell me, just go play, go have fun. And it had to do with an Audi. It's just a long story, but this world is a playground. You're here to play. You're here to have fun. And life is really, really short. I'm watching my mom going into a nursing home and I'm watching my husband recovering from a stroke. Every day that you are here is a gift and you are here to play and to have fun.
Speaking of the gift, my last question for you is what is next? You talked about passions and gave some really great advice, but what's next for Kathy Zant? Like what's going on?
Yeah, and things are showing up that I'm starting to feel like a lot of Cadence is still a big passion of mine. I love the Cadence team. I love the Cadence product. I love the Cadence community. Actually, I have an idea I want to talk to you about after this because I just remembered it. So I'm saying it now. Away again. I have so many, the ideas and the flow that is happening in Cadence is still there. So as long as that's still there, I'm still very invested in bringing the word of Cadence to the world. But security keeps popping off too. And I am seeing new opportunities happening there on content creation and more videos. Like I had that experience with YouTube. That was a lot of fun. So I want to do some more of that. I want to make a film, but I got to wait for Spirit to tell me what that's going to be about.
Okay. I was gonna say talk more about that, but if it's not, that's left field. You just
Well, not totally. I was involved in a film about WordPress before at the
okay.
previous place. So it was my previous employer, the CEO, was very into film.
Yeah.
And So we floated the idea of a WordPress film, and I was into all the word camps, and I'm like, well, let's just interview these people. I know exactly who to put in it and interview. We got Matt Mullenweg in it. So it's called Open
Okay.
is the name of the film. And
Okay.
it's just a short documentary, but I'm executive producer on that. And I really enjoyed the process. When I watch it, I'm like, oh, and that was me. Oh, and that was that. That wouldn't have happened if I didn't do this. Like I contributed to it. So it touched a lot of people. I remember after it launched, somebody wrote on Twitter, now I have something to show my parents so they understand what I do. Think like it was fun and it was empowering. And I want to do more of that and just tell people's stories.
Mm.
So
That's interesting. I think that because when you said film and then you said film specifically, not movie, not video, but film, old school term. Typically, me thinking of the
yeah.
and I think of South by Southwest.
Yeah.
I'm a film that I came up from a background of video photography and I didn't get into it as much as I would have liked to, but I'm a film head. And so just hearing you say that I went to South by Southwest twice.
Did you?
Yeah. And I can see I've never seen any WordPress space. So I think that, and WordPress has a marketing problem. So I'm like, has that even been thought about of submitting films into the Sundance is it film festival? I forgot to any of the film festivals. And that would also broaden more of the reach of WordPress. No, I've never even thought about that. So I didn't know there was WordPress films.
Yeah.
So
yeah, we did that. We were going to submit it to film. Well, I did submit it to a bunch of film festivals, including
nice.
South by, but it didn't get picked up. It was a little more, it was a lot about Five for the Future.
Mhm.
And I think it was a little, there were a lot of people's stories in it about how important WordPress, especially as a community, has been
Mhm.
in terms of this community. I mean, I know a lot of people who this is their life and these are their friends and this is their world.
Yes. Talk
And
about it. It's like keep it that it is their
yeah, which is
world.
great. I'm so glad that people have that community. And actually it's been really good for me to have it as well and for me to show it to my kids.
Yeah.
Because I think a lot of our communities in the world right now are a little broken.
Yes.
And WordPress has community. And I think that's why
does.
WordPress
It
is still
does.
here 20 years later, is because of the community. That's why that's what it's really highlighting. But it's also a lot about Five for the Future. And if you want this to continue, you need to participate. So there's a little bit of a persuasive element to it. And maybe that less of a story and more of a persuasion. And so there it was, maybe that made the film festivals not pick it up. But and I only just pitched it to Telluride, like 3 or 4 of them. Because once you go to a film festival and it's shown at a film festival, that's your opening.
Yes,
That's
that's
it,
what I'm
right?
saying. Yeah.
And so then it's like, okay, well, we can do the opening at WordCamp US in 2019, and that's where it was premiered. Or we can do it at Supply, or we can do it someplace else. And so it was like Telluride, and there were a few other A-level. So I was like, go big or go home. What's the point?
Yep. Yeah.
What's the point of doing I don't know. It's the Denton, Texas fall that we're in right now. And it's kind of like a small little college, like the mini Austin right now. I could do hey, look, film festival here. But for something like that, I really wanted to hit big, but it just didn't get picked up. So who knows? Maybe if I could tell more of the people side of WordPress, it might be interesting.
I mean, now that you even brought it up, if you need my help with it, if you ever need any assistance, I didn't even know, like I said, that was even a thing. But in my mind, thinking, of course that should be, but I don't know what I don't know. I didn't know WordPress forever in my life.
Wait, do you know HeroPress? Have you seen HeroPress?
Yes.
Topher.
Topher was he was my mentor for WordCamp EU.
Awesome.
Yeah.
He's amazing.
Shout out to Topher, by the way.
Yes. Topher.
And his daughter, they both were pretty dope. They both were speakers for WordCamp Buffalo.
Yeah.
Right? They're cool.
Yeah, they're awesome. That entire family ate too.
Oh, yes.
But actually, after my husband had a stroke, Topher was the one person who's like, make sure you take care of you. And I'm like, you know what? I think I need therapy. And he said, that's a good way to take care of you. And it has been sort of like my bi-monthly check-in just to make sure I'm okay.
Yep.
To make sure I'm okay. Because if I'm okay up here, everything else kind of takes care of itself. So Topher, shout out to Topher.
That is, see how we have so many, like I said.
We have so many guys.
No, he was the first person I talked to at WordCamp Buffalo when I walked in there and I'm looking around and Topher, he just looks, he says, And he comes to me. I'm like, okay. And then next thing I know, for WordCamp, he was chosen to be my mentor,
Yeah.
and me and him have been talking since. And I'm like, and I had no idea his whole family was just so ingrained into.
Yeah.
So people like you and him, just like you guys, give me a lot again, modeling and inspiration, because to have a family and to be in this community and to be in WordPress and to
It's
be
good.
and that's I don't see that often. That picture's not depicted
Yeah.
often enough in these plug-in communities. And like all this stuff is cool and
Yeah.
nerding out and stuff, but sometimes I want to know like there's humans
Yeah.
behind all this stuff, and these people have certain values that I have. I know we all have different views, like
Yeah.
but family,
Yeah.
like we don't have enough of it.
Yeah. Well, WordPress is kind of a big fan. When my son, we were living in Arizona and he was going to drive to Minnesota, and I'm just like, are you kidding me? What are you doing? And my friend Tyler, who I know from WordPress, lives in Kansas City, is like, you got a 3-state radius with me. I'll just go anywhere. Here's my number. Just let me know if you need me. Like, does that, right? Just like there's WordPress people and we watch out for each other.
Yeah.
So if somebody needs something, the our family is here. It's kind of like a big. This is what we.
I agree.
This is what we used to have with communities. Like when I was growing up, like this was the neighborhood, right? And they all watched out for the kids and everything. But our neighborhoods are so broken now, and highways through them. So, but now there still is community. There's the WordPress community, and it's now global. So if my
Yes.
kids are like in Athens,
Yep.
I probably know someone there who
Yep.
can
Yep.
keep an eye on my kids. It's
No, but that's real. But yeah, having that community, I would definitely say within WordPress was one of the biggest reasons why I wanted to join, and was
Yeah.
one of the things that I felt like it gave me an outlet outside of my internal family, where sometimes we don't get along, and there's times where we're have different views and going separate ways, but I still need the feeling of I don't mean to sound like Vin Diesel from Fast and Furious saying family, like, is this a Fast and Furious promo here? No, it's not. But I need that feeling of I can count on somebody else just beside
Yeah.
myself, even
Yeah.
though it's important for us to be able to count on ourselves.
Yes.
But I do need that. And I didn't understand how much I've yearned it, because I didn't get it the way that I wanted growing up. Even though I have a big family,
Yeah.
I still felt like a black sheep. And I didn't really like having the feeling of feeling like an alien to my internal family, and we're blood. I feel closer to people who I don't share biological genes with or blood
Yeah.
with. And it's interesting. WordPress brought that to me, to
Yeah.
your point.
Yeah. And we have that kind of a little bit with the Cadence community too, just sort of this microcosm of people
Absolutely.
who really kind of watch out for each other. And, oh, I know you were looking for this. And I would like to have to float this by Ben. This is just off the cuff, but like how we have word camps, like I want to do like Cadence camps, like something like that where Cadence people can come together
Mm.
and do that because I feel like there's value that we're just of that connection within the Cadence community too. So
Amplify that was from what people told me they loved at that
yeah,
event. I mean, so I can imagine that would get the same traction or more, because y'all's first event, virtual. I'm sure we're going to have a physical one day. It's going to be really awesome.
yeah,
But that one blew up. I mean, I had
yeah,
a lot of people that saw me, and I saw you from somewhere, and even in Athens, and it was that event that they saw me from. No, from nowhere else, but literally that event. So I can imagine that would really go, like having
yeah,
something like that. To your point, yeah, Cadence community is definitely a microcosm of the bigger WordPress community, and it's necessary because you have people that specifically are talking about not just the tool itself and all the nuances, but coming together, talk about Gutenberg and working with that, understanding that, for example, full site editing, you don't have to be scared if you're not ready to go in that path. There's still something here for you if you want to kind of take this route for
yeah,
now, because there are a lot of topics talk about full site editing, and there's themes that are pushing to be compatible with that, but there's
yeah,
other people that are like, it's not ready. So I like how Ben and the team, it sounds like they do their vetting and their discernment. Everybody's not going to always agree on the directions and decisions, but I feel like overall, I think that they do a great job, because it is hard on which routes
it is.
squirrel to chasing your tail.
We're built in the state of WordPress, so we have to follow the WordPress laws and customs. It's like this. So, but I think it's okay. It works out. It works out. But yeah, lots of change happening with WordPress right now. But I think it's a really exciting time to be part of this
Mm.
community and be a part of this project. So it's all Like, it's all good.
It's all good. Well, thank you for giving me your good self. And this has been good. Oh, this has been great to have this opportunity with you.
Yeah, I've been so happy to spend some time with you.
I'm having a great time. I know we're going to talk more offline and off air, as they say. But is there anything any last remarks, anything that you want to tell the people watching this 2 months from now, watching this 10 years from now?
Yeah.
What would you say, or anything
Well, I think that the common thread that went through our discussion is that if you're watching this, you matter, your kids matter. There's so much opportunity for you. Go forth in love, not fear. Just and hack at things, because there's always, if the problem shows up, there's a solution just waiting for you to open to it. So it's there for you.
Well, thank you. Thank you, Kathy. I appreciate that. And thank you all have given us your time, your ears, your eyes, your attention, and we'll call it a wrap.
Bye.
Peace.
Please subscribe to our channel and turn on your notifications so you get notified when we release new videos.